Albert Camus' essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, is a piece of philosophy that has risen to prominence in recent times, with its teaching of accepting absurdity and the joy that one should strive to experience in the face of total helplessness, striking a chord with a disillusioned youth working menial jobs without an end in sight. The beauty of the argument is sort of in its simplicity, as it can just be told in 5 words. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Camus invokes the story of Sisyphus to reflect on the central human question of purpose and ultimately challenge the issue of suicide. Sisyphus, a mythical Greek king, trapped death twice in a futile attempt to escape his own mortality. To reflect the folly of his actions, he is condemned to the eternal punishment of rolling a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down just as he is about to reach the top. Camus takes the situation, one of complete despair, and asks us to imagine Sisyphus as happy. He is able to acknowledge the absolute futility of his existence and can then be free to be content. To Camus, suicide is an inappropriate reaction to the unjust world. The absurd, as he describes it, is the impossible task that every person faces when they must justify their experiences and indeed their existence itself. He proposes that we should surrender ourselves to the irrationality of the human experience with happiness, to find satisfaction in existence. The absurd provides 3 consequences: revolt, freedom, and passion. To exist is to revolt the indifference of the universe. To accept a life without meaning is to be free, and to be free from these chains is to be free to embrace our passions. This is the position that Camus adopts to tell us that suicide is not philosophically justifiable. Whether you agree with Camus' conclusions, his argument essentially boils down to one simple concept: life is for living. In a similar way, David Foster Wallace's commencement speech to Keon College's graduating class of 2005 embodies the same concept of freedom from the absurd, the banalities of daily living, the Sisyphean task of rolling the boulder up a hill only to see it roll back down again. Wallace calls for us to constantly remind ourselves of how we perceive the world, consciously forcing our train of thought to one of positivity and service rather than self-centeredness. In this, we are able to free ourselves from the absurd, from the perceived injustices we face. We can successfully roll the boulder without questioning why we were subjected to this fate. All About Lily Chou is a film that embodies the absurd world. It presents the life of a group of teenagers as brutal and soul-shattering, with the vulnerable being torn asunder in the wake of their sadistic peers. The central duo of Yuichi and Hoshino demonstrate the world's cruelty over and over again, as Hoshino endlessly torments all those around him for seemingly no reason. Once an intelligent, kind, and well-respected class president, Hoshino is subjected to a near-death experience on the island of Okinawa, which instantly shifts his disposition completely to one of pure evil, seemingly existing only to inflict misery on all those around him. The event is sudden and unexpected, the manifestation of an absurd world which provides no explanations for its actions. Yuichi is able to escape from this torment through the music of the titular Lily Chou and engaging with her fanbase on the internet. In the opening scene, we are introduced to the concept of the ether, an ephemeral energy or even a dimension that Lily is almost supernaturally able to harness. They talk about its power, how she is able to transcend reality, how she is able to fill the emptiness of your life. All you hold dear will hurt you, and the ether is the only thing that can set you free. The ether is not exclusive to Lily's music, as her fan debates over the Beatles, Björk, and Sheena Ringo and their abilities to harness the ether. We see a cult-like devotion to Lily, one that those who do not understand are quick to point out. We then understand the ether to be an escape from the world, a religious experience that a select few, presumably young people, are privy to. Members are fanatically devoted to their Christ figure, their saviour who carries with her the secrets to the ether. We are then painted a picture, one of a group of disaffected youths who adopt Lily Choo as their meaning. The ether provides an answer to their existence, an explanation to the absurd. Adults are almost completely absent throughout the film, mostly serving as an ineffective authority figures who are ignored or resented. These teenagers are thrust into a cruel world without guidance and are sent on an odyssey to find meaning in their lives. For Hoshino, his near-death experience likely makes him realize the injustices of the world. Goodness is not rewarded in turn, and as such he concludes that he can act as he pleases, surrendering to his most evil desires. A classmate speculates that the collapse of his family business has contributed to his behavior. A complete rejection of the rigid structure of society is what he has decided, and thus he has supposedly freed himself from the absurd. For Kuno, she embraces her music as a release from life, an expression that is, just like everything else in this world, torn away from her and burned to the ground. For Suda, her story culminates in her suicide, an ultimate release that contradicts Camus' ideas of freedom. She watches the kites fly overhead and she wonders what it would feel like to soar through the sky. She desires liberation from the absurd and she turns to death as a solution. As for Yuichi, under the internet pseudonym Philia, he tells us at the very beginning that Lily is a personification of the ether. He describes her as Genesis, the beginning. The biblical nature of Lily's work and subsequent worship is not subtle. Yuichi's life is a constant barrage of evil and suffering, but through Lily's music he is able to persevere. The ether heals all wounds. When listening to her music he is invincible. As Mr. Peanut Butter so aptly puts it,
the universe is a cruel, uncaring void. The key to being happy isn't to search for meaning, it's to just keep yourself busy with unimportant nonsense, and eventually you'll be dead.
And for Ichi, he fills his life with Lily. In life he is a bystander, even abetting some of Hoshino's actions, specifically the effective prostitution of Suda, an act that almost invariably contributes to her death. But despite all this, his guilt and misery melts away into the ether. He befriends Blue Cat on his Lily Choo fan forum. He talks to them about struggles, and they encourage him to turn to Lily, to entrust her with his burdens. They agree to meet at Lily's concert in Tokyo. It is then the cruelest of fate that Blue Cat turns out to be Hoshino, and at the concert throws away Yuichi's ticket, denying him the reprieve from life he so desperately desired. In retaliation, Yuichi kills Hoshino, the murder being described as tainting the ether by Lily's followers. From this we see his loss of faith. He is no longer accepted in the community he was so deeply rooted in. His entire identity is shaken. The one place he could find solace has been stripped away from him by the cold savagery of the absurd. But he is able to revolt against it on his own accord. The murder of Hoshino is one of the only proactive decisions Yuichi makes throughout the entire film. He then proceeds to dye his hair, a physical manifestation of his transformation. We are invited to question what will happen next. Will he reject the music of Lily Choo he once found great comfort in? Or will he return now being freed from Hoshino's grasp? Will he turn around his academic misfortunes? Or will he continue to slip into the depths of despair? Is he even free of the torment? Or will other bullies take Hoshino's place? It is not clear which of these, if any, will happen. All we are shown as the credits roll are Yuichi, Hoshino, and Suda standing in a field, listening to Lily. All About Lily Choo tells a story of a disgruntled generation, confused in its direction and purpose, all of which are reflected in its structure. The film seems to revel in its chaos, leaping around its timeline in a dizzying mess of loosely connected threads. Characters are briefly introduced, if at all, and then drop in and out of the series of vignettes. The chronology of the story is unclear, so much so that you may even need to stop and reorder events so you understand what is happening. Just like the lives of its children, the film is one that does not bow to the whims of human desire. Yuichi tells us that Lily considers the French Impressionists of Debussy and Satie to be the first to channel the ether. And just like the quasi-improvisational stylings of these composers, the film throws the events that capture a raw emotion of the moment: anger, fear, and frustration. Thus, we can see the absurd extends past the events of the film and into its composition, imbuing itself with the indifference of a lonely existence. The camera itself even has a restless quality, almost as if it were shot on a handheld camcorder by a friend or a family member, capturing precious moments. It bobs and weaves through each scene, rarely staying still. In fact, when the boys go to Okinawa, the film turns into a series of home videos of their holiday. The scenes feel thus intensely intimate and impressionistic, capturing the raw emotions of each fleeting moment. So when Hoshino is subjected to his life-altering near-death experience, we are right next to him as he lies unconscious on the beach. The intimacy that is created makes each cruel and violent action all the more brutal. We witness every trace of suffering that is heaved at us at a relentless pace, never allowing a break. Indeed, at one of the greatest points of inhumanity throughout the film, the rape of Kuno, the camera switches back to this intimate style, this handheld home video style, elevating the pure panic and horror of the situation, creating an utterly sickening scene. So we see that the film itself does not hesitate to show its callous nature, bearing its senseless destruction with a pure strength. All about Lily Chou presents to its audience a portrait of an indifferent world, one that does not care about the needs or desires of its inhabitants. The actions of its characters are inexplicably evil, subjecting their peers to a ceaseless terror. Yuichi stands at the wayside as he is mercilessly tormented and bullied, so he escapes to Lily's music, a reprieve that is snatched away from him. His final act of murder is not a heroic act, but one of necessity, one that frees him from the binding chains of an absurd world. But that is not to say that this film or Yuichi's actions necessarily agree with the philosophy of Camus. In some ways, it even contradicts it. The story of Yuichi and his relationship with his existence is an incomplete one. We are not told whether he triumphs over this savage world or whether he succumbs to it once again. We do not know whether Yuichi can accept these constant injustices. It is likely that someone else will take Hoshino's place just as quickly as Hoshino himself was transformed into a monster. The only thing that All About Lily Chou is certain of is the unavoidable chaos of the absurd, a chaos that every single one of us will experience.